The crown hovered above Princess Ilyra like a predator pretending to be jewelry, whispering in the voices of 9 dead empresses, while 10,000 nobles watched her kneel with golden chains on her wrists and obedience drugs cooling her blood. She had been taught since childhood that a ruler did not want. A ruler became the empire. Then the condemned human prisoner limped through the ceremonial fire, burned coat smoking, one eye swollen shut, and placed himself between her and the throne. The guards raised their rifles, the priests screamed blasphemy, but Rowan Hale only looked at her as if she were not an heir. Not a weapon, just a frightened woman under a machine. "I do not want her crown," he said. "I want her choices back, for one heartbeat." The Empire forgot how to breathe. Ilyra had met Rowan in the ice mines of Vey, where prisoners carved fuel crystals from glaciers that bled blue light. She had arrived veiled in silver as the High Synod's perfect daughter, her words written by ministers before she spoke them, her thoughts shaped by tutors who called mercy a disease. Rowan had been chained among smugglers and rebels, yet he had smiled when she passed, not with worship, not with hatred, but with unbearable recognition when a child miner collapsed. The overseer lifted a shock lance, and Ilyra felt the protocol in her skull whisper. Inefficiency must be corrected. Rowan stepped into the blow instead. Lightning folding him to his knees, "You people spent centuries perfecting cruelty," he gasped, "and still made it look cheap?" She ordered him silent. But that night, his questions stayed alive inside her. Why did everyone answer for you before you knew what you wanted? That was the first crack in the cage she had been taught to call duty. The Empire did not fear human fleets. Earth had been shattered and its children scattered across repair docks. Refugee moons and border wars, there were too few humans to conquer anything. But the Empire feared human questions, because questions passed through armor better than plasma. Rowan asked why her guards chose her route, why her meals were weighed by physicians, why her lessons included war law, tax law, blood law, but never how to laugh without permission. He asked if obedience felt like peace, or only like a quieter prison. She hated him for it, because every answer had been installed in her before birth. Yet when the coronation robes arrived, blue for submission to the ancestors, she chose white gloves instead, a tiny rebellion. And the palace shook as if she had bombed a moon. Priests whispered. Doctors doubled her dosage. But beneath the chemicals, Ilyra learned that choice could begin smaller than a breath. On coronation day, the throne chamber unfolded like a cathedral built inside a battleship. Obsidian walls reflected fleets waiting in orbit, each ship aimed at a rebellious world that would burn once Ilyra accepted the crown. The ritual was ancient. The crown would pierce her nervous system, bind her will to the throne engine, and turn doubt into silence. Rowan was dragged below the dais in chains, scheduled to die after the binding so the new empress could prove she had no attachment left. The high priest raised his blade and asked, "Does the heir accept eternal rule?" Ilyra opened her mouth. The obedience drug pulled her tongue toward yes. And then every light in the capital died. Darkness swallowed the nobles. Emergency flames bloomed red, and Rowan stood free, bleeding where he had broken his own thumb to escape the cuff. Some revolutions do not begin with a war cry. They begin when the lights go out and the servants stop pretending he had not come alone. The child from Vey had carried a stolen transmitter inside a laundry cart. Human engineers on prison ships had turned funeral drones into signal jammers. Kitchen workers had salted the obedience reservoirs with minerals that shattered the drug chain. And across the capital, dock, crews, clerks, soldiers, debtors, and mothers heard one sentence in every buried language. Ask who profits when you are told you have no choice. Rifles rose. Nobles screamed. Priests called for blood. And Rowan climbed toward Ilyra through gunfire. Not like a shining hero, but like a stubborn wound that refused to close. He kicked a fallen rifle to a guard and shouted, "Decide who you are before someone else does." Plasma struck his shoulder. Another bolt tore his thigh. Still he climbed. Because above him, the crown descended. Hungry and patient, the human was not fearless. He was simply carrying something heavier than fear. Rowan reached the dais and pressed a gun into Ilyra's chained hands. The chamber froze. The high priest smiled. "Kill the human princess. Prove your purity." Rowan leaned close. Blood on his teeth. "You can," he whispered. "That is the point." Ilyra stared at the weapon, at the crown, at the fleets and the mirrored walls. Her entire life had offered only two paths: obey and be holy, refuse and become a monster. But Rowan had brought a third: choose and be responsible. Her fingers shook. Because even mercy could become another command if she performed it for him. Rowan seemed to understand. "Do not choose me," he said. "Do not choose them. Choose the world you can bear to wake up in." The crown touched her hair. Then the princess made the first true law of her life. She turned the gun and fired through the chain above her left wrist. Then through the chain above her right, gold shattered across the steps. The high priest screamed that she had wasted her chance. But Ilyra dropped the gun and seized the crown with bare hands. Star metal burned into her palms. Dead empresses flooded her mind, commanding surrender, offering eternity, promising peace without pain, obedience without guilt, power without loneliness. And for a moment she understood why every ancestor had yielded. A cage is tempting when it calls itself safety. Ilyra screamed once, not in fear, but in birth. No. The word cracked across the chamber. The crown needed consent. Old machinery dressed as divinity. And when she refused, its song broke. She hurled it down the dais, where it rang like a dead bell. That sound became the first note of 1,000 forbidden songs. The fleets above received no order to burn. The rebellious worlds watched dawn arrive untouched. And inside the palace, certainty died by inches. Some nobles fled. Some guards dropped their rifles. Some priests attacked and were stopped by cooks with knives, archivists with marble busts, mechanics with welding torches, people who had mistaken patience for loyalty until a human reminded them that fear could be organized backward. Rowan collapsed beside the throne, laughing weakly. Ilyra knelt beside him with burned hands and no protocol for what came next. "Why not take it?" she asked. "They would follow you. You could rule better than they did." Rowan looked at the broken crown. Then at the frightened crowd. "Humans tried putting better people on higher chairs," he said. The chair stayed hungry. By dawn Ilyra stepped onto the balcony where she had once watched Rowan beaten. Number crown, no veil, only bandaged hands and a voice that shook until it steadied. She did not declare herself empress. She declared every conscript free to stand down. Every prisoner free to face citizen courts instead of priests. Every world free to send representatives or none. And every child free from surgical obedience forever. Chaos followed. Loyalists fought. Old admirals tried to reclaim the throne. But the first choice returned became 1,000. Then 1,000,000, then too many for any crown to swallow. Rowan listened from a stretcher and smiled when she asked what humanity wanted in exchange. Territory, tribute, command. He closed his eyes and answered, "Better neighbors." Centuries later, children on worlds that had never seen Earth learned how the coronation failed. They learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not rage, not courage, but the stubborn belief that a person without choice had not yet been allowed to become fully alive. And beneath the statue of Ilyra, with burned palms and Rowan with broken chains, the inscription held the sentence that ended an empire. The human did not want her crown. He wanted her choices back.